Hey folks, John with A&J Outdoors, and doing something a little different today. Okay, if you're watching this on YouTube, you're watching a vlog. It's season 2, episode 2. If you're listening to this, you're listening to it as a podcast. That would be season 1, episode 1. You want to listen to it as a podcast, even though you're watching it on YouTube right now, go to places like Spotify, Apple Broadcast or Podcast, Breaker, Castbox, Google Podcast, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Republic. So if you want to listen to it on the radio or however you listen to podcasts, you can do that as well. So as my first podcast, it's kind of different for me. So we're going to just fumble through this thing. First of all, how'd you guys like that intro, right? YouTube viewers, right? You can comment down below. Let me know what you thought of that little intro clip. I think I might need to shorten it just a little bit, but you guys let me know what you think of it. It's fun putting those together. This episode is not going to be very long, and it's just going to be talking about the cost of fishing. Fishing is an awesome hobby, right? Some would say it's a sport. Either way, it's awesome. It's a great way, especially getting young kids out there away from the computers and video games and all that other stuff, at fishing, right? And it can be as cheap or as expensive as you want it to be. Like any hobby, you can start off with the basics, not cost too much, and then from there it can get really expensive. Think back, people in my age bracket, we think back to our childhood and a cane pole at a pond, right, with a little line, hook, and worms, and you're good. You're fishing. That wasn't very expensive. Now, fishing licenses for those people of age who have to buy their license. So that's one thing you can't get around or shouldn't get around, right? Buy that fishing license. And then for the person who goes fishing once in a while, maybe once every few months, 5-6 times a year, maybe. Hey, those Walmart specials are perfectly fine. Don't let people tell you that they're so cheap and crappy they won't last you. I grew up an Air Force brat. Most of my childhood in New Mexico. Most of my fishing in New Mexico was streams and lakes for trout. And, cheap little spinning reels, rod and reels, right? Started off with the Zebcos, like all kids should. And it was very inexpensive to fish like that. And it still is. Now, I went from high school. So I moved. I lived in Michigan the last couple of years of my teens until I graduated high school. And so I did a lot more fishing there than I did in New Mexico because we were right on Saginaw Bay. But it was still, that Walmart special was fine to rig up and throw out there and catch it. Maybe now you get a few lures, cost a little bit, some spoons, right? And whatnot, but not too expensive still, right? Pretty simple. Maybe you get a little canoe or something like that. Typically somebody's selling one used and you saved up some money from yard work jobs or whatever. It might have seemed like, hey, this is all the money I got then, but when you think about it and reflect on it, that was still a very inexpensive way to get out there and get your fish on. I went from high school to the Army, and in the Army, we bounced around a lot, right? That's what you do. I did 20 years. So in, North Carolina, I fished little ponds and lakes there on the installation. So again, Walmart special was just fine. In El Paso, I went up into New Mexico and fished Bonito Lake. Me and my brother would meet there, or me and Audrey go up there. We camped up there. Trout again, love that. And then we found some little water holes, tanks they call them here in Texas. Most people will call them ponds, but they're really to provide water for cattle and stuff. But we found a few tanks we could go fish, and bass and bluegill, catfish, of course. And we had some the river, of course. So again, the Walmart specials were just fine. Spent a couple stints in Germany, 3 years apiece, so 6 years, Did not fish in Germany. You know, it's one of those things where everybody's like, "Oh, it's so expensive to fish in Germany and this and that, and you got to go through all these hoops." So I just didn't try it. Now, you know, hindsight being 2020, I wish I would have. There's a lot of unique species and a lot of good places to fish in Europe, so that would have been cool. But I didn't. Come back states. Let's see, we were in Virginia. So in Virginia, I didn't fish a lot, but we did have a river. We lived in near Chester, Virginia. Fort Lee was where we were assigned, and so we did a little river fishing there and got little catfish and stuff like that. Went out on one of those party boats on the coast one time and used their rigs. So again, fishing wasn't too expensive for me, and those Walmart specials I bought when I, you know, my first assignment in North Carolina, I still had when I my last assignment here in San Antonio, Texas, right? So they lasted, you know, basically 20 years. Put new line on, new hook, because we were fishing so infrequently. We didn't need to spend money on a higher quality product because we didn't need it. They lasted. Now, fast forward to when we got to here, San Antonio, Texas, and we started fishing a lot more. Got the first boat, which was a used boat. It was a 78 uh, deck boat. I forgot what it was called. We named it Misadventure because every time we went out on it, we had a misadventure. But so that was, I think we bought for $800. So again, not too bad, right? Got me on the water. Yes, we had to do a lot of work on that boat to keep it going. But got us on the water, got us fishing. And that's when I start fishing on a, you know, almost weekly, you know, at least weekly or every 2 weeks we'd be fishing. That's when the Walmart specials started failing me, right? Because now all of a sudden you're putting them through a lot more work than you had before when you were fishing. You know, I would fish as many times in a month here as I did in a whole year in other places and more if you count Germany when we were in Germany. So the less expensive rod and reel started to show, you know, their value, right? That they weren't built, right, to last that, to go through what I was putting them through. We got into catfish tournament fishing, right? So we were fishing, you know, hopefully big fish. And so it was about that time when I realized, look, I can stay Walmart specials, fish here and there. Sorry about the phone noise. And, you know, do a little here and there type thing. Or I can, if I want to keep going at it the way I'm going at it, I need to upgrade my equipment. So then I started buying a little bit more expensive reels, some Akuma Avengers and stuff like that I was using at the time. And got a little more expensive rods, though I found for catfish. And now I use them for saltwater, fresh, any big fish type fishing I do. I found pro angler rods, which some local folks up in Dallas area they started with crappie rods, and then they got cat rods. The cat rods can catch sharks. I mean, they're that good. And I was at a time when I was running my online store, I even made a deal with them and I was selling their rods, right? So I've got a bunch of those pro angler rods, and they run anywhere from $40 to, you know, up to the 12 footers. I think $65 somewhere. So it's still not a very expensive rod when you look at it out there. And then I had one of those Akumas break in my hand, right? So I got the rod here, and I got the Akuma over here, and I got a fish on, and I had to hand line that fish in. I got a YouTube video, short one on that. And that's when I realized it's not all metal framed reel, and that's what I wanted. And I knew, even though at the time I wasn't fishing the salt yet, I knew if I bought something that could handle the salt water, it's going to be able to handle freshwater, no problem. So I started looking at pin, and I got my first Pin Fierce. These were the original Pin Fierce before they went to Fierce 2 and 3, and I don't know if they're on 4 or 5 now. But I got Pin Fierce and matched up with those rods, and they worked perfectly, right? And then we hit the coast for the first time. Me and Joel went down there in the boat, took what we had and just went out there and fished. And we caught a lot of different fish. So we got bit by the bug. And now I'm looking at, man, I need these pro anglers are great when I'm out here looking for bull reds and stuff like that. But I need something to catch flounder, trout. So now I got to downsize from the pro anglers. but I don't want to get cheap, right? So we were buying a little more expensive rods at that time. I'm a pin guy now, right? I still got pin fierce. I got some pin battles, and I don't remember what else, but all pin reels pretty much. I still have some of the Akumas that are on other rods that I didn't get rid of, right? So they're still out there, and I'll use them freshwater fishing. And I got crappie rods, the Pro Angler crappie rods, which they're pretty inexpensive as well. I use those for freshwater fishing, right? So I still have those. I didn't just get rid of everything. But I also, around that time, decided I want to try to build my own rods to see what it was like, right? That's something maybe you're going to do, custom rods, right? So I built a couple. My first, I think, 4 rods were all inshore rods. I'm building my 5th now, which is a boat rod. It's a heavy rod for going conventional. All the others are spinning, except for spinning reels. This is going to be conventional. It's for offshore. And building it yourself, it's still not a cheap rod. Those inshore rods probably cost $130 to $150 a piece to build them. Okay. It gave me an appreciation for the custom rod builders, because I look at custom rods and people are selling rods for $200, $300, $400, $500. And I'm like, no, I don't need that. But building my own, I can see depending on how well it's built and what materials you use, I could see how it can cost someone that much, right? Because it's not something you just throw together. It takes a lot of time to build one of those. So now you can go from the Walmart rods. Nope, I'm fishing heavier. I'm getting that mid-level, some pin, Akuma, some of the nicer Shimano stuff, and you're spending more money. And then, so Misadventure, it was time to get rid of Misadventure. And we bought a brand new, but this was in 2010, brand new Mako center console with a 115 on her, and we were ready to do anything right at that time. So now I went from a kid with a cane pole and a little bit of line and hook to a guy who's going out and buying a brand new boat. Got to have the graphs, got my Lowrance on there. I got my Motor Guide XI5 with remote control and anchor lock, because I got to have that. Probably 10 or 12 rod holders mounted on the boat. And if you look at some of my videos about the boat, you've seen some of the upgrades I've done. None of it cheap, hydraulic steering and all those things. I do them myself to keep them a little cheaper. But you can see where it goes from fun, sit on the bank fishing to, I still love fishing, right? And that's my passion. But I think along the way, some people reach their comfort zone. I know people my age who still like to just fish that pond for bluegill, crappie, bass, whatever. Don't have a desire to go to the coast and fish and all. And folks that will, a couple local lakes we have here, they want to sit on the bank. Now, a couple of these are power plant lakes that have red drum in them. Yes, it's unusual, but they do. And catfish, those are the main fish. There's others, there's hybrids and stuff. But they just want to go to the lake, sling out big old rods, set up the grill. And so you don't need the most expensive gear for that, especially if you're doing that, 5, 6, 8 times a year. So again, I guess the point is, fishing is as expensive as you allow it to be, because you're the one spending the money. And there's nothing wrong with finding your spot where, hey, this is it. This is what I want to do. I want to fish this river. I've got my John boat with a small motor, and there's crappie, there's gar, there's bass, and I can just fish this river. I've reached, now I just maintain, right? Replace stuff that goes bad, new line and hooks, lures, whatever. And then there's folks that kind of like what I've done over the last, I would say probably the last 8 years. It just steadily increased to a point where now I want to get an offshore boat. I want a boat. I want to sell my boat. I'm not soon, so don't ask, but I want to sell my boat, and I want to be able to get something that will go take me offshore. I want to go looking for tuna, mahi, king max, all that stuff out there, just because I have a passion for that. That's what I want to do. So, like I said, it doesn't matter where you're at, but just understand, if you're new to fishing and you want to go to a local lake and catch some bass or some crappie, some bluegill, You don't, no matter what you see on the YouTube videos and the commercials on TV and in the magazines, you don't have to have, 150, $200 fishing rigs to fish like that, right? You Walmart special is going to do fine, right? And then if you, like me, like I did, if you decide, what, I want to step up my game, go after bigger fish or fish more often, so my gear is going to take more of a beating, right? Well, then you step up the quality, and that's when uh, the price jumps, right? So that's what it's all about with fishing. You can keep it as cheap as you want or make it as expensive as you want. Look at these offshore boats going out of Florida that are out there in the fishing those tournaments for sailfish and stuff. You're talking, 200 to 300, $400,000 boats, right? You're talking reels that cost $600 to upwards of close to $1,000 for a reel. So again, uh, fish what you can afford, right? Stay in your limits, but you don't have to have that stuff to go out and fish, right? There's plenty of people that fish out of 25, 28-foot boats out of Florida that go out and catch sailfish and all that, and they don't have a $300,000 boat, $600 reels. So you don't have to go that far. But again, those folks do it because they're fishing hard, they're fishing a lot, right? And they have the money to spend to get the highest quality product they can. So that's what it comes down to. So I'm not sure, what my point was as far as where we were going with this whole talk, other than to say, when you start thinking about, oh man, maybe I can sell some stuff so I can get this or that thingamajig that does these great things, especially, graphs are the big one. Every year, Lowrance, Garmin, Humminbird comes out with some new look around feature or whatever that all of a sudden, oh, I got to have that, right? And I'm guilty as anybody. I look at that, I'm like, oh, shoot. But then I look at the price and I do what I am telling you now. I decide, what are my priorities? Right now, it's, hey, maintain what I got, keep the boat going. And then another year or so, I'll start looking for that offshore boat probably. And then I'll start looking to upgrade my gear to match that type of fishing. Okay. But if you're happy sitting on that bank at the creek, the river, the lake, the pond, right, catching bass, bluegill, crappie, you don't have to have a $200 rod and reel combo. Okay. Think about what our parents and grandparents did when they were fishing. Okay, they didn't have all that crazy stuff that we got nowadays. They didn't need it. They still caught plenty of fish. So, all right, I think that's the end of this discussion, right? As far as fishing, and I'm looking for ideas from you all on things you would like me to talk about in future episodes, whether it's for the podcast or the vlog, whichever you're watching or listening to. Let me know, right? Hit me up and I will do my best to talk about whatever it is you want to hear about. All right, folks, I think we're going to shut this thing down. I'm going to end it with that video clip that I started with, my intro, just because I want to see it again. So podcast, you're just going to hear music. Okay. That's what it is on your end. Okay. All right. Peace out, folks.